We're going to focus on a leveraged IUL. Specifically, what happens inside of it is you're going to contribute a certain dollar amount. Then at some point, there's going to be a leveraged dollar amount. I'm calling it a match, but it has many different names, and we'll walk through that as well. And then we're going to talk about how a product like this performs. So, kind of just setting the stage and digging into some details. This is where I'm introducing the bucket. And moral of the story is we're dealing with someone 38 years of age. He's going to contribute the same consistent amount. He got a 7-pay. His whole life policy is a 7-pay. So I'm kind of recreating the same thought process. The goal is to contribute for 7 years inside of a product like this. And we're going to talk about what it looks like inside of a leveraged IUL when you contribute to it in a consecutive 7-year period. So he's contributing $49.06 a year. The death benefit, the life insurance initially being purchased, is $126,000. As I mentioned, this is an option B policy. So that means as he contributes this $49.06 into this bucket, there's a certain amount of growth that happens. And as that cash value accumulates, this death benefit also increases. But the problem that those who don't provide IULs dislike about IULs it specifically is because there's some tie to the stock market associated with the performance of this vehicle. And so we're going to break that down. And a lot of people assume that the IUL is invested in the stock market, and that is incorrect. So we're going to kind of peel back the layers as to where the stock market impacts the growth inside of a product like this and where it doesn't. So we're going to kind of step through those things. But again, to set the stage, 38 years of age, putting in 4906 into this bucket. What is this bucket? This bucket is what I'll call it in traditional life insurance terms, it's called the general fund. What is the general fund? Well, all cash value life insurance companies have a general fund. The whole life policies that provide a guaranteed dividend and at 4% growth, where does that come from? It comes from the performance of that life insurance company's general fund. So this dollar amount that's being contributed into this bucket is the same bucket that whole life policies, that people who have whole life policies are contributing into. It's the same, no different. What is this bucket comprised of? What is it so special about this general fund? This general fund is comprised of AAA rated bonds in most cases. Short answer to that question is this bucket is secure. If you think about the life insurance companies that offer I'll call it permanent life insurance policies like whole life, variable life, index, universal life. If you think about companies or life insurance companies that offer those types of products, they've been around for hundreds of years. They have been dealing with billions, if not trillions of dollars. And so they're not looking for, I'll call it aggressive or extreme growth. They're looking for security. And so the most secure way, they're also not looking for get rich quick. They're looking for consistent growth over time. So this general fund, meaning the dollars in this general fund, is invested in AAA rated bonds that are backed by the Fed, which is about as secure as you can get. So they're looking for consistent growth over time to reward you for putting your hard-earned funds into this bucket, into this general fund. There's growth on the money in this bucket as it relates to an IUL. That growth is somewhere between 3 and 7%. If you look at the history of IULs in this country, and if you look at some of the, I'll call it the A+ rated life insurance companies like Mutual of Omaha and such, you'll find that there has not been a year, there has never been a year that 5% growth inside the general fund, or that 3 to 7% growth inside the general fund has not been paid. So my point to this is this bucket that this 4906 is going in is pretty dang secure. And these aren't my words. This is what the data says. So as a result, when you put that 4906 in here, this is also where that 0% floor lives. That 0% floor lives in this bucket. What that means is when the 4906 goes in, there's a contractual guarantee from the life insurance company that the money going in it cannot be lost due to market risk. So again, why is this important? That means that this bucket is secure. All right, so let's break it down. So let's talk about year one. Go ahead, sweetheart.
Nope, you're good.
Okay, so let's talk about year one.
Oh,
go ahead.
Well, Sequia did have, she did have a good
Hey,
comment.
come on.
She was saying infinite versus velocity banking, and could we just define those two strategies and what makes them different? She felt like the audience would benefit from knowing versus just throwing the terms out. I like this because oftentimes you hear people using them in the same sentence as if they're banking strategies, meaning they're somehow either versus. Sometimes you'll see blog posts or whatnot saying infinite versus velocity banking, which is really weird that they would say versus, right? Because it's not the same thing, but they do have some similarities and some benefits if you are able to tie them together. And that's essentially what we do is we learned how to tie them together. But then we learned that the vehicle and the structure is what makes the difference in how it performs and the outcome that you are able to achieve. So do you want to talk about that for just a moment?
Yeah, I can. So from a and I don't it won't be anything I reference on the vibe board. So if you
Okay.
want to take me off the vibe board, that's
Yeah.
fine as well. So infinite banking versus velocity banking, like what is it about them? How are they different? All that kind of fun stuff. Well, velocity banking, well, first off, they are both just a strategy. Let's start there. Velocity banking is a strategy. You cannot go anywhere and buy a velocity banking item. You can't. Infinite banking is a strategy. You cannot go to a life insurance company and buy an infinite banking policy. You can't. So it starts with first, they're both just strategies, meaning
Yep.
they are applications that if you apply them properly, if they're structured properly, you can do things better, greater, faster than you're currently doing them today. That's it. So they're both strategies. Now, velocity banking is a strategy that is truly just designed to help you eliminate and or reduce debt, ultimately resulting in increasing your cash flow. So it's applying, I'll call it non-traditional means like a debt tool, like a credit card, line of credit, home equity line of credit, business line of credit, you name it, but using a vehicle to drive your income through. And as a result of driving your income through a tool like a home equity line of credit or a personal line of credit, what that does is it causes that tool to be at the lowest balance possible. And then the idea is you would pay all of your normal bills from that same vehicle. When you do that, what happens? Well, your cash flow, your current cash flow ends up living on that tool, bringing that balance down to its lowest point. Well, as room is created on that debt tool, that line of credit, personal line of credit, home equity line of credit, you're then able to take dollars from that vehicle and pay off other debts, pay off other, I'll call it loans or lines of credit, like credit cards. And in doing so, what you end up doing is you end up paying off debt faster. You end up increasing your cash flow faster. It's all about the velocity of money, the movement of money. We've been educated to believe that as we receive income, that income goes out and pays a bill. And then we worry about the after effects. Well, in truth, all that does is assist the creditors and those banks who love to charge you fees. The idea is to restructure how income comes in and how bills are being paid so that you can take advantage of the movement of money, getting multiple uses out of the same dollar. That's velocity banking. Infinite banking, again, it's a strategy, and it's a strategy applied to a life insurance product. And if you were to read, become your own banker or whatever, the idea behind infinite banking started with whole life policies. So it's structuring a whole life policy so that you can do what? So that you can build cash value. So it's putting a certain dollar amount into the product, building cash value. And as that cash value is built, again, same way you were leveraging lines of credit to be able to increase your cash flow, the cash value that you're building up inside of this cash value life insurance policy, you're able to leverage that cash value as well to be able to pay things off. So if you were normally paying a monthly payment towards your car note, and that car note that you were paying was going to that bank, well, here's an opportunity to leverage cash value inside your policy, pay off your car note, pay off what was going to the bank, and recapture that interest that you were spending elsewhere, and recapture that into your own bank, bring it back into your own system, your own I'll call it machine or system, and recapture that interest so that you can actually be able to go back to the well and leverage it over and over and over again. So the concept is similar in the fact that in most cases people use infinite banking to eliminate and or reduce debt, but in truth, in infinite banking, you can actually, there's a multitude of things that you can do outside of just simply paying a bill. You also have this dollar amount that you can use to leverage to be able to invest and create and build more assets. And if the product is designed properly, you can also use this vehicle to generate income, and it's a lifetime generation of income. Now, for that, it's about structure, and that's kind of what we're talking about today. In most people who offer infinite banking strategies, they offer it through a whole life policy. It is at least as far as I know, it is not marketed as a vehicle that can produce income for you for life. It is marketed as, hey, here's a vehicle that you can leverage to be able to pay a bill or reduce debt or recapture expenses going out. Whereas if you structure a properly designed IUL, Index Universal Life Insurance policy, it can not only allow you to recapture to be able to pay off a debt, it can also produce or put you in a position where you can produce a lifetime of income. And we kind of phrase it as replace your employer when you get there. And what I'm kind of stepping through, or what I'll continue stepping through here in a moment is an IUL with leverage that allows you to expedite that process, speed up that process, so that you can now take that income faster while also eliminating and or reducing debt.
Yeah, one of the biggest,
Words, words, words,
lots of
words.
words. One of the biggest differences that I don't hear talked about much is income versus banking. So, becoming your own bank is being able to get a loan, not having to get permission, right? Or having to qualify for those types of things. Essentially, becoming your own bank is the biggest sell or the biggest draw to the concept of infinite banking. But we also like to remind people that this strategy was created by Nelson Nash long time ago, right? Decades ago, when some of the newer tools and newer opportunities that we have did not exist, or they did not exist for people like you and me, like us. If we didn't have $5 million in net worth, then we didn't qualify for some of these particular programs before, and now we do. So we also didn't understand how all of this worked to take advantage of it, right? We didn't understand that there were just rules and information we did not know, and that there was a heavy sense of gatekeeping on some of these strategies that you didn't have to have millions of dollars to do. As a matter of fact, the people who did understand these strategies were able to take themselves up into the top 1, 2, 3% of wealth because the difference was they had this information. Mm-hmm. The concept of becoming your own bank is complete and having leverage to do what you want, right? If you have enough in there, it's completely separate from generating enough income to last you through the rest of your life. That is a completely different conversation, which is why we are talking about why this is different, why it grows in a different way. And so that's just wanted to get that some clarity around that. The objective is different here too. So not only can you become your own bank, but the specific focus and why this is structured differently is to produce tax-free income for the rest of your life, not just past retirement age, but so that if you got sick at age 30, right? If you started this at age 20 or age 25, it doesn't matter. If you got sick and you were unable to work, I'm using this example because it's very near and dear to our story. I got very sick and I was completely bedridden for years. If I would have had access to a policy like this and had started this type of policy, I could have drawn income from this policy during that time period. Now, let's say I got better and I was able to go back to work. I wouldn't have to draw off of it, and it can continue to grow, but it's there when I need it. It's there producing income and providing the platform, the framework for a foundation for me to be able to leverage in that way, particularly in that way. This is different here, and I'm gonna stop talking now so we can talk about why it's different, because I think that's the most important part.
Yep.